How's it going, everyone? As always, my name is Jimmy Champagne. This is Deck Ready, my channel all about the Steam Deck and other gaming handhelds. I've got two topics to cover today. The first one is how my beloved PlayStation's parent company Sony is ruining the Steam Deck once again. And the second news story is a continuation of the bizarre reveal of the ROG Ally X. The Verge got his hands on the thing, but can't show any pictures and actually wasn't able to play it. Let's jump into this first news story though, because it's all about PlayStation and PC. It's definitely an ongoing problem that started with Helldivers 2, and it just shows Sony's lack of foresight because it's just a continuation of the unforced errors that they've been kind of inflicting upon themselves over the past month or so. This video is sponsored by VITURE. VITURE and the VITURE 1 XR glasses have been a sponsor for a long time on my channel PS Ready, but I'm gonna be honest, I think I might like them a little bit better using them with the Steam Deck. So when they reached out and asked if they could sponsor a video featuring their new VITURE Pro XR glasses and their new Pro dock, I was like, hell yeah, send them over. The VITURE ones were awesome. The VITURE Pros are even better. They have a new screen technology they're calling UltraClarity, and it's basically just an upgrade in every way over the VITURE 1. It's a lot clearer. There's less blurry edges in the way that there are no blurry edges when they're on your face. The screen is just a lot smoother overall, and I noticed the upgrade immediately. And just for some added context, that new screen is 120 Hertz, which is awesome, and it's also 10% bigger. They've also went out of their way to improve the electrochromatic film, and if you don't know what that is, basically when you're watching content on this big screen in front of your eyes, it darkens the world around that screen. And on the new glasses, it's almost to the point of putting you in a pitch black room, which is a really cool experience. And getting these things going with the Steam Deck is dead simple. All you have to do is plug them into the Steam Deck via the included USB-C to MagSafe adapter that the glasses use to connect to everything. And then bam, you've got your Steam Deck screen mirrored right in front of your face, and it looks awesome. And these glasses really are one size fits all because they have myopic adjusters. So once they're on your face, you just turn two dials to dial in that image. But I'm gonna be honest, I put them on for the first time. It was already crystal clear. I didn't have to adjust anything. And the new Pro dock is sweet because it has an independent battery. So if you grab the adapter, it clips onto your Steam Deck, and then you can clip the dock on the back. So it'll give you a little bit more juice when you're using the glasses. And with that Pro dock, you'll also get up to 5 hours of extra battery life out of your Steam Deck, and it supports 3D video output, which is sweet. I've seen a lot of other Steam Deck creators talking about using these glasses with their Steam Deck, and it makes a lot of sense because they feel like an official accessory. They're really that good. And if I'm being real with you guys, it's just really cool technology. I got these glasses a little over a year ago, and I've used them a ton since, so I highly recommend checking them out. And if you're someone who prefers using a controller with your Steam Deck, check out the one that VITURE made with 8-bit Do. It looks like it was made for the Steam Deck OLED limited edition, which of course I have. And the best part is they're offering a special 10% discount on anything except the Pro XR glasses over on the VITURE store. If you want to grab them from VITURE directly, go to pro.viture.com/deckready. And if you want to grab them from Amazon, go to viture.us/deckready. Once again, huge shout out to VITURE for sponsoring this video. So the first part of this, which you're probably aware of, has to do with Helldivers 2. Sony kind of shot themselves in the foot with an AR-15, or a giant grenade launcher or something over and over again. A couple of weeks ago when they announced that you would now have to log into the PlayStation Network to be able to access Helldivers 2. Now on the surface, PC players had a big problem with this that I think is justified because there is an ongoing issue over there where over the past few decades or so, I can't believe it's been that long, every publisher under the sun, whether it's EA, whether it's Ubisoft, whether it's Epic Games, whether it's Bethesda, the list goes on, instead of just releasing their games through Steam and taking the 30% hit on selling those games, they've all tried to make their own launchers, and I would say each and every one of them have failed to a miserable degree. Epic Games is the most noteworthy of them all because they kind of got the most success, even though compared to Steam, it's really no success at all. They tried to get people to use their store by giving away free games, and what they found is that people would just log in, add the games to their account, and nobody would really play those games or, buy games on the store, which is their ultimate goal. So no matter what store you're using outside of Steam on PC, you're not really getting the greatest experience, but that's not even the core of the issue with Helldivers 2. The biggest problem is that they launched the game in a bunch of countries. Pretty much worldwide, any country that could use Steam was able to pick up Helldivers 2, and when Sony announced this whole thing where you're going to have to log into the PlayStation Network to be able to play Helldivers 2, and it turns out that for the months that this game's been out, it came out back in February, they've been selling Helldivers 2 in these territories where the PlayStation Network isn't available. So if they went through with this whole thing where they made you log into the PSN to play the game, all those people in different countries would either have to use a VPN or make an account in a different country, or effectively they just wouldn't be able to play the game, which I'm just going going to be honest, as big of a Sony fanboy as I am, is complete bull. So what Sony did is they walked this back. They said, we're still learning how things are working on PC. You're not going to have to log into the PlayStation Network to play Helldivers 2. And credit has to be given to Arrowhead, the people who make Helldivers 2. They apparently were instrumental in making this work out in the way that it did for PC players. But the issue still remains because the game is no longer available in the 153 countries where the PSN isn't available. So yeah, big unforced error from Sony. I kind of understand on the surface why they thought it wasn't that big of a deal, because as someone who plays a lot of my games on PlayStation 5, I like the integration of the PlayStation Network with Steam and the games they're releasing on PC. I would love it if I could transfer my saves back and forth, because the vast majority of these games that do come out on PC, I want to just continue with my save that I have on PlayStation 5, and I effectively have to start the game over or download a save that's roughly at the spot I am in said game. And because I play so many games on PlayStation, when they added in PlayStation Network login to Spider-Man Remastered, you got some extra suits and some extra bonuses in the game. I did it right away. I did it as soon as I could in Helldivers 2. I really have no problem with it, but I see why it's a problem for so many people who don't play on PS5 and don't have this huge library built up there. But that's not when Sony stopped shooting themselves in the foot, because now we have the release of Ghost of Tsushima. Today it came out. I saw on YouTube that people loaded it up immediately on Steam Deck. The intro to the game looked like it was running at medium settings at a pretty much hard lock 30 FPS, but the beginning of that game is super contained, so I wouldn't use that as justification to buy the game. Wait till people get farther in the game and they're in the open world and doing some of the bigger cinematic set pieces and things like that to see how the game actually runs. But when it comes to Ghost of Tsushima 2, you'll notice on the Steam store that it's unsupported. Sucker Punch and Nixxes came out with a statement before this letting everyone know that they did do a lot of optimization work to make sure the game would run on the Steam Deck, on the ROG Ally, on the Legion Go, and pretty much every other PC handheld out there. But the reason it's listed as unsupported on Steam for the Steam Deck is because you have to log into the PlayStation Network to take advantage of the Legends mode, which came out after launch on the PS5. It's basically like a 3-player online cooperative mode that builds up to a raid. It's actually really cool. So if you have a main gaming PC where you can try this out, I highly recommend it. But because you have to log into the PlayStation Network to take advantage of that feature and use crossplay with the PlayStation 5, it needs Windows. They don't have a way to make this work with Linux just yet. And because of that, the game is unsupported on Steam Deck. And if you pay full price to buy it there, the full $60 asking price, you're effectively only getting about 75% of the game. I almost said half, but Legends isn't the longest experience. The vast majority of the content in Ghost of Tsushima is, of course, the Iki Island expansion and the original campaign. Any way you slice it, those are making up the vast majority of what you play. But still, this is super frustrating, because if they didn't go full forward on this whole initiative to make you have to log into the PlayStation Network, theoretically the online multiplayer would have worked just fine. Now, the difference between Helldivers 2 and Ghost of Tsushima is that Helldivers 2 is the first game that's going to use Sony's new overlay, which is honestly pretty cool. Just like outside of all these issues, you can get trophies for the game, and it's a synced trophy list. So me, someone who played Ghost of Tsushima on PS5 and has a lot of the trophies, once I beat it on PC, because unfortunately there's no save transferring, I can clean up those extra trophies that I don't have yet, and my account will merge it all together and give me the platinum trophy across both versions of the game. So it feels like they're this close to getting save transferring working. But if the PlayStation Network login feature doesn't work on Linux and you're not able to play multiplayer, that makes me a little bit worried about save transferring not working whenever that does become available, because you'll have to log into the PlayStation Network to take advantage of that. And there's an extra layer as to why it's a bad look, because other games that Microsoft puts out, like Sea of Thieves or Forza Horizon 5, they all have features where you log into the Microsoft Network or the Xbox Live Network. I don't really even know what they're calling it anymore, because they change things every freaking day, it seems like. But even though you don't get save transferring with Forza Horizon 5, that login process is super simple and easy to work with. I did notice the double standard though, where, you know, people were kind of coming at Sony for this login forced feature, but they're not coming at Microsoft for the same thing. Again, the big difference here is they added it 2 or 3 months after Helldivers came out. That's the real crux of the issue, on top of the fact that they are adding it in when they already sold the game in like 153 countries that won't be able to play it after that feature would have gone into effect. Knowing that the game seems to run pretty well on the Steam Deck makes it even more of a bummer, because that is the reason I want to buy these games on PC, even though I already own them physically on the PlayStation 5. The idea of being able to sit down at my desk, play these games for a few hours every night, and then maybe I want to go up to bed and play on my Steam Deck like I usually do before I go to to bed, I can just take that save with me upstairs and continue playing the game. Once I beat the game, I was really looking forward to replaying the Legends mode, and now I can't do that on the Steam Deck. I'm basically chained to my PC, which makes buying this game a little less enticing to me as someone who already owns it on the PS5, because on the PS5, it runs at a really high resolution, it runs at a locked 60 FPS, so there really, for me personally, aren't a lot of visual benefits or performance benefits to playing it on PC. I just buy all the Sony games on PC because I want to play them all again. I really don't know what the correct solution is here, because obviously PC players are going to want the solution to be never having to log into the PlayStation Network, but as time goes on, they are adding in meaningful features to that PlayStation Network login. I want to get to a point where if I buy the game digitally on PS5, I also get it on PC. And just speaking as me, someone who plays agnostically on the Steam Deck, on my gaming PC, on the PlayStation 5, I would be down to use a PlayStation launcher if it meant buying the game once, because who wants to buy a game that's $60 or $70 more than once? I know I don't if I don't have to. So I'm a little bit torn, because on the one hand, I kind of support Sony's initiatives here, and I want them to build out a system where I can buy games once, get them on both platforms, transfer my saves, transfer my trophies, everything works just fine. I don't give a shit personally about the PlayStation Network. If you've ever played on PlayStation, the PSN is just abysmal. It's had major problems ever since it came out. When I was in high school, it went down for an entire goddamn summer, which really sucked, because when I was growing up, my parents were super militant about my time limits when playing video games. So during the school year, I mean, like, I had to have homework done, I had to have Taekwondo done, I had to have basketball done, I had to have so much stuff done that by the time I was finished with all my chores and everything like that, I was so tired that all I wanted to do was read a book or play like PSP in bed. So like during the summer, when I had my most active time to game at night with my friends, it really blew chunks that I couldn't access the PlayStation Network. And on PS Ready, I have stories coming up pretty much every month now about the PSN being down for a weekend. Letting you change your name on the PSN was a Herculean effort that took until the PS5 generation to actually work right. The download speeds are abysmal on the PlayStation 5. You have to literally go into internet settings and tell it to use 5 gigahertz networks over 2.4 gigahertz networks to actually get reasonable speeds. So like, yeah, from the online multiplayer standpoint, don't really care, but all the other extra features that they're working towards actually including with these PC releases, I am for. But if it comes at the cost of 153 countries not being able to play, and like issues with releasing games without this feature required and then putting it in a few months later and like not really being upfront about that stuff, I don't really support that at all. So it's like kind of a weird middle ground that I'm in, where it's Sony's fault because they have no strategy. It seems like they're doing this on the fly, which is the biggest reason why it seems like they're shooting themselves in the foot. Still, I gotta commend them for the quality of their ports. There were a few outliers like Sackboy: A Big Adventure, which, just being honest, no one really cares about. And The Last of Us Part 1, they hired Iron Galaxy to do that port. The port's still not up to snuff with where it should be, but I guess it's acceptable. I really hope Sony stops working with them because they have such an insane track record of garbage PC ports. I don't know why they worked with them in the first place. The only thing I can think of is that Adam Boyes used to be an executive at Sony, and then he went to Iron Galaxy, so he was probably flexing some relationships that he had from when he worked at Sony during the Vita days. But still, they got to figure their shit out, or Sony should stop working them. That's like the two options there. But outside of those two games, Sony's been an absolute powerhouse with their PC ports. I haven't had issues with any of them, going from God of War all the way up to stuff like Returnal or now Ghost of Tsushima. I think they do a really good job. They justify the high asking price of these games, and I think they all run pretty dang well on the Steam Deck. Me personally, I like playing them on a TV. A lot of the Sony games aren't really made for the Steam Deck, and the only one though that I'm pretty sure can't run effectively is Returnal, just because that's a full-fledged PS5 game that actually was pushing the console to its limit. So yeah, it's a crappy situation that Sony's gotten themselves into. I hope they find a way to figure it out, but by causing these issues in the first place, it puts them on the back foot because people are already mad at them. They had a pretty solid reputation with these PC ports, and they basically buried it in the sand and then shot it a bunch of times with a gun. Anyway, that brings us to the next news story here, which is some hands-on impressions of the hardware of the ROG Ally X, which are positive. It's just, I don't understand why the rollout of this thing is so just weird. So Asus announced this thing in the weirdest way possible. It was like a live stream where they didn't actually show the device, but they talked about the specs it's going to have. It is getting a RAM increase, which is cool. The APU is exactly the same, which, you know, I'm here nor there on. The APU in that thing is pretty solid. Gives you a little bit of headroom over the Steam Deck, does exactly what it needs to do. They're leaving the screen the same. I saw people were upset about that. I don't really care because the screen looks really good on the ROG Ally. Speakers are staying the same. The speakers, again, are extremely good. They've said that they moved the SD card slot so that it's not in the way of fans, which is a really important thing because, of course, the huge issues the ROG Ally had for pretty much its first year where it was frying people's SD cards. So those are all meaningful upgrades, but I was really curious about the chassis. Like, was this thing going to be the exact same ROG Ally in black with some minor upgrades under the hood, or were they going to do some work to make it a more ergonomic machine? And according to Tom Warren, they have done some work to make it a more ergonomic machine. He said, if you're looking at it top down, imagine a black ROG Ally. That's what it looks like. A lot of the changes that they've made are on the back of the device, which is where I think they needed to make the change. When you're holding this thing above your head in bed, the edges of it are very sharp. They're not comfortable to use. And when you're holding it at a weird angle like that, you almost always accidentally hit the back buttons. So they've completely reworked the back buttons. They're more like a little bit of a heart shape and they're farther away from the grips. And the grips themselves are a lot less angular and a lot more curved. So he said that despite the fact it's heavier, thanks to the increased battery that they put inside of it, it's a lot more comfortable to use. And if you're holding it above your head, it's not this uncomfortable monstrosity of sharp edges that it was before. So that's great. He did point out that because of these hardware changes, it's a little bit thicker. And of course, again, because of the battery, it's a little bit heavier, but these do seem like important changes that needed to be made. I just like knowing how little of a performance increase this thing looks like it's going to get. I wish that they were on a 2-year dev cycle instead of a less than 1-year dev cycle, because by the time this thing comes out, it'll either be right at the 1-year mark of the current ROG Ally or just before it, which is honestly kind of crazy. I think Asus needs to kind of take a step back and reorient pretty much their entire business practice here. I think it would have been better to wait for a more powerful ROG Ally. They're obviously banking on the fact that the Z1 Extreme is more powerful than the APU that's in the Steam Deck OLED. I don't think it's enough to really justify the increased price tag that they're also going to put on this thing. So yeah, I'm going to look at this thing once it's actually revealed. I just don't like the way it's being revealed, and I don't necessarily think it's meaningful enough of an upgrade for me to purchase a whole new ROG Ally. The only reason I might pick one up is for a video, and again, because I got my first ROG Ally as a review unit through Xbox. But yeah, that about covers it for today's video. Let me know what you think down in the comments below. Remember to subscribe and set your notifications to all if you haven't already. As always, my name is Jimmy Champagne. I'll see you in the next one. Thanks for watching and shape on.